A lady arrives at her flower shop. She is the heroine of the story, named Abby. Abby was a lawyer in New York, but after losing her husband recently, she moved back to her hometown. She has started a flower shop business here. While opening her shop, a man arrives and asks if she has some money for food. Abby is shocked to see him because he is her former schoolmate, Elvis. Back in school, they had dated briefly. However, Elvis's life has taken a turn for the worse. He has been through jail due to some wrong choices and is now struggling without a stable job. Despite his struggles, Elvis remains optimistic that things will improve. Abby gives him some money and sends him away with kind words. At the shop, Abby also has a partner who helps her run the business. Even though Abby has taken up the role of a florist, she misses her work as a lawyer, where she helped people in meaningful ways. In the next scene, Abby meets her college-going daughter and chats with her before leaving. She stops her car near a coffee shop and calls her partner. When the call goes to voicemail, she informs her partner that she's grabbing a coffee before heading back to the shop. Just then, a stranger runs out of a nearby apartment building in a panic. The stranger gets into his car, which is parked behind Abby's, and speeds away, hitting Abby's car in the process. Shocked, Abby gets out and tries to note the license plate of the stranger's car but can only make out part of it, 84A1G. Her attempt to read the plate number is recorded in the voicemail. She calls 911 to report the incident, and a police officer arrives at the scene. The officer asks her about the driver's description, but Abby says she couldn't focus due to how quickly everything happened. However, she does remember that the man was wearing a jacket with a logo, which she mentions to the officer. In the next scene, Abby and her partner are at the flower shop, and Abby is upset about the damage to her car. Her partner assures her that the police will handle it. The partner mentions having a cousin who is seeking legal advice about a divorce and requests Abby, as an ex-lawyer, to help. Abby agrees. At that moment, a man enters the flower shop. This is the hero of the story, Marco, who owns a nearby restaurant. Marco was previously a private investigator. Having seen Abby talk to the police earlier, he stops by to check if she's okay. Abby explains the hit and run and mentions she could only get part of the license plate. Marco offers to help, saying he has a friend working in the motor vehicle department who might be able to retrieve the details of the car owner. The following scene begins with the police officer coming back to talk to Abby. He informs her that a dead body has been found in the next street and that a witness saw someone fleeing from the crime scene. The incident happened around the same time Abby's car was hit by the stranger. The officer suspects the fleeing person could be the same individual who crashed into Abby's car. He takes Abby to meet Detective Corbison, who questions her about the driver. Abby admits she doesn't remember the man's face but recalls the car was a black Escalade model and mentions the partial license plate. Detective Corbison surprisingly reveals that he already knows about the car. Then another officer informs them that a witness near the crime scene saw Elvis. Abby is shocked to hear this, as Elvis is her schoolmate whom she had met earlier that morning. Detective Corbison speculates that Elvis could be the murderer, but Abby insists that the person she saw wasn't him. The detective assures her that the police will investigate and dismisses her. Later, Abby and her partner are back at the flower shop. Her partner has learned that the police suspect Elvis in the murder case. Since Elvis has a criminal record, her partner believes he might be guilty. But Abby firmly believes that Elvis wouldn't commit such a crime. In the following scene, Abby visits Marco's restaurant to discuss the case. Marco seems to know about the murder in the neighborhood. Abby tells him that the person who fled from the crime scene must be the one who hit her car. Marco suggests it might just be a coincidence. In the next scene, the heroine is reading about the murder news in the area. The police have not yet identified the victim. Later, at a coffee shop, she meets an old friend who works as an assistant to the district attorney (DA) of the town. The heroine asks him about the murder in the area. He reveals that the victim was a 20-year-old man, but the police have not yet released his details to the media. In the following scene, the heroine learns something new. Detective Corbison, who was investigating the case, has gone on vacation, and the case has been handed over to another detective, named Detective Brand. When the heroine steps out of the flower shop, she sees that a traffic police officer has issued a fine for her car parked on the road. Just then, the hero arrives, and the heroine talks to him. It seems the hero is also following the murder case closely. Through the hero, the heroine learns that the victim's name was Billy. Next, the heroine meets her partner's cousin, who seeks her help to get a divorce from her husband, Tom. Tom runs a nursery garden business but is always busy with work or traveling for meetings and hardly spends time at home. When the cousin asked Tom about it, he said he was doing everything to secure their future. Since the heroine is not currently practicing as a lawyer, she refers the cousin to another lawyer, assuring her that the lawyer will help with the divorce. The cousin feels relieved. In another scene, the heroine is at home with her father, a retired police officer. She asks him about Detective Corbison, and her father replies that, to his knowledge, Corbison is a good officer. Her father is aware of the murder case in the area and that her schoolmate is a suspect. However, he learns that the heroine is also connected to the case as a witness. He advises her to let the police do their job and not to get involved. Later that night, the heroine visits the website of Tom's nursery garden. She watches a promotional video where Tom is speaking about the garden. The next day, the heroine and her partner meet Billy's parents, who are customers of the flower shop. Recently, they had purchased flowers for their anniversary. The heroine learns for the first time that they had a son named Billy. Billy had dropped out of college and moved out of their home to live alone. His parents say they haven't heard from him in months. They don't understand who could have been angry enough with Billy to kill him. The heroine offers her condolences and steps outside, only to find another traffic ticket on her car. The fine was for parking the car 18 inches away from the sidewalk. However, the car seems to be properly parked on the sidewalk. The heroine takes a photo of the spot where the car is parked and goes to court to appeal the fine. At the court, a staff member gives her a form to fill out and submit. Frustrated, she fills in the form and writes her phone number, asking the staff to tell the concerned officer to call her. She threatens to file a case if necessary and leaves. Outside, she meets the lawyer handling her cousin's divorce case and asks for an update. The lawyer says Tom is unwilling to agree to the divorce. To secure a favorable verdict for the cousin, they need to find something incriminating against Tom. The heroine agrees to help and takes on the responsibility of finding out which bank Tom deposits his nursery garden income into. In the next scene, the heroine meets the hero and suggests they team up to investigate the case. She explains that she misses the thrill she experienced when practicing as a lawyer, and the hero admits he feels the same about his time as a private investigator. The heroine is determined to uncover the truth about Billy's death and help his parents. The hero agrees to join her. The following day, the heroine learns something crucial: Billy worked at Tom's nursery garden. This connects several threads: the murder victim, the divorce case, and even the stranger who hit the heroine's car, who fled the crime scene. The heroine and hero visit the nursery garden together. The heroine speaks to one of the employees and asks about Billy. The employee reveals that Billy was close to the store manager, who happens to be Tom's right-hand man. The heroine then approaches the manager and starts asking about Billy, but the manager brushes her off, claiming he doesn't know much about him, and walks away. Both the heroine and the hero suspect that the manager is hiding something. The heroine picks a plant from the nursery and deliberately pays for it with a check instead of cash. She plans to deposit the check at the bank, which will give her access to the nursery's account details. This way, she can find out about Tom's bank balance and transactions. The information could be useful for the divorce case, and that's the reason behind her plan. In the next scene, the heroine contacts Detective Brand. The police have still not identified who hit her car and fled. In the Billy murder case, the schoolmate remains the only suspect, which makes the heroine feel like the police have done no investigation at all. Meanwhile, the hero finds out the details of the car involved in the hit and run through a friend and informs the heroine. The car is a black Escalade model and seems to belong to either the county commissioner or a church father. Since it's unlikely that the church father would do something like this, the hero suggests they visit the county commissioner's address. The county commissioner is a government officer in the town's administration. He is around 60 years old, but the stranger the heroine saw was a young man, so she doubts it could have been the commissioner. The hero speculates that someone else could have been driving the commissioner's car. Agreeing to this, the heroine and the hero park their car across from the commissioner's house and watch the garage. Soon, a black Escalade car drives out of the garage. They try to use binoculars to see who is driving the car, but a patrol police officer named Detective Blasco arrives and questions them. The hero responds that they were just sitting and talking. Detective Blasco tells them that parking there is not allowed and sends them away. The hero drops the heroine at her house, where she finds a bouquet of flowers left at her doorstep. There is no name on it, leaving the heroine confused about who might have left it. The next morning, the heroine converts the check she gave the nursery garden into cash and gains access to their bank account details. She finds that the money is deposited in an account under the name, the Sprout Corporation. The heroine wonders why the account is not under Tom's name or the nursery garden's name. She informs the lawyer about this discovery, and the lawyer guesses that Tom might be hiding something from the cousin. Using this information, the lawyer decides to corner Tom in the divorce case. In the following scene, the heroine meets the DA to find out the status of Billy's case. The heroine is suspicious of the fact that Detective Corbison went on vacation. The DA explains that it was a pre-planned vacation. Although the DA cannot discuss the Billy murder case with her, he offers to help with her hit-and-run case. He suggests meeting for lunch the next day, and the heroine leaves. Later, while having dinner at a restaurant with her father, the heroine discusses the case. On one side, Billy's parents are suffering without knowing who killed their son, and on the other, the police seem to be trying to frame the schoolmate. Her father advises her to let the police handle it. While they are at the restaurant, the commissioner arrives and casually chats with her father, asking about his retirement. The father introduces the heroine to the commissioner, who is accompanied by a young man named Tony, his nephew. Tony has recently moved from Chicago and is staying with the commissioner. The commissioner mentions that Tony is helping him with a road construction project. The heroine suspects that Tony might have been the stranger who hit her car. She tells the hero about this, and he suggests finding out where Tony was at the time of the hit and run to confirm if he was the stranger or not. The next morning, the heroine meets her schoolmate on the road and takes him to a coffee shop to talk. The schoolmate lives in the basement of the apartment where Billy was murdered, which led the apartment owner to report him to the police. The schoolmate admits to making several mistakes in life but insists that he would never kill anyone. The scene cuts to lunchtime, where the heroine meets the DA. She tells him she suspects the police are hiding something about Billy's murder case, but the DA assures her that their town's police would never do such a thing. In the following scene, the cousin's divorce case hearing takes place. The lawyer produces Tom's bank statements, which work in the cousin's favor. As the heroine and the cousin leave the court, Tom arrives and argues with the heroine, blaming her for putting the idea of divorce into his wife's mind. He warns the heroine to stay out of other people's lives and leaves angrily. On her way home, the heroine passes a road under construction, where Tony is supervising the project. Tony notices her, and his expression changes as he quickly turns away. The heroine observes this and also notices that the logo on Tony's jacket matches the logo on the jacket worn by the stranger she saw earlier. She immediately informs the hero, saying that Tony might be the one who fled from the apartment building and that he could also be involved in Billy's murder. The hero reveals that he has already collected some information about Tony, who has been arrested a few times for gambling and fighting at bars. However, no action was taken because Tony is the commissioner's nephew. The heroine feels they might find evidence if they keep an eye on Tony, and she selects a spot to watch him without being caught by Detective Blasco. That night, the heroine and the hero sneak behind the commissioner's garage to watch. They see the black Escalade car returning to the garage, and both the commissioner and Tony step out of it. A while later, Detective Blasco arrives. The commissioner hands over an envelope filled with cash to Detective Blasco, and the hero and the heroine take photos of this exchange. They suspect the commissioner is bribing Detective Blasco, but they don't know the reason. Hearing the commissioner's dog barking, they quietly leave the area. In the next scene, the news reports that the police have arrested the schoolmate for Billy's murder. The heroine is shocked and suspects that the commissioner bribed Detective Blasco to ensure the schoolmate was framed. She discusses this with the hero. Another detail that concerns them is that ever since the heroine reported the hit-and-run case, she has been receiving traffic fines frequently. They speculate that the commissioner might be using his influence to harass her and protect Tony. That night, as the heroine starts her car to drive home, she realizes that someone has cut her brake wires. The hero reports this incident to the police. In the next scene, news emerges that Billy's schoolmate confessed to the murder, which shocks the heroine as she wonders why the schoolmate would confess to a crime they didn't commit. She begins to suspect that the commissioner might have influenced the police to pin the confession on the schoolmate to protect Tony. Discussing this with the hero, she admits she doesn't know why Tony would kill Billy. The hero asks what motive Tony could possibly have had, but the heroine has no answer. She learns the commissioner has a history of escaping punishment for misuse of public funds, leading her to suspect that his knowledge of such manipulative tactics could indicate his involvement. The hero suggests that if the commissioner is protecting Tony, they may not be able to do anything about it. The heroine visits the nursery garden and notices the manager and employees loading numerous bright yellow flowers called mums into a van. Taking the opportunity, she sneaks into the employee cabin inside the nursery and finds it packed with mums. The heroine dislikes mums because, after her husband's death, people brought those flowers to her, reminding her of her loss. Yet, she takes one mum and leaves the nursery. The manager notices this and questions her, but she explains she wanted to buy a mum and refuses his offer to give her a fresh one, saying this one is fine. In another scene, the heroine meets her lawyer, who informs her that Tom doesn't just own Sprout Corporation but also has a subsidiary called Roots Corporation. The CEO of this subsidiary is none other than Ed, the lawyer who defended Tom in his divorce case. The heroine wonders why Tom would secretly run such a business and hide its income. Seeking answers, she meets the DA, who tells her that the police found the schoolmate's fingerprints in Billy's room, which matched criminal records. When the heroine mentions that Tony hit her car and that the commissioner is protecting him, the DA expresses doubt about being able to take action against the commissioner. The heroine recalls that the hero has photos of the commissioner bribing Detective Blasco. She calls the hero to ask if they should show the photo to the DA, but the hero advises against it, saying they shouldn't reveal anything unless they are certain. He also warns the heroine against filing an insurance claim for the car damage, suspecting it might be risky. The following day, a building inspector visits the heroine's flower shop. When she points out that an inspection was conducted just 2 months ago, the inspector claims there are no records of it and lists building violations, ultimately shutting down the shop and placing a notice on the door. The heroine realizes this could be the commissioner's doing since she filed an insurance claim against him. She shares her suspicions with the hero, who advises her to drop the claim and focus on reopening the shop. However, the heroine resolves not to let this go. Later, the heroine and her father have dinner at a restaurant. He notices how deeply involved she's become in the murder investigation within just a few days of her return to town. Despite her troubles, he encourages her bravery in standing up against injustice. During their dinner, she receives a message that alarms her. As she leaves, she notices Tony at the restaurant, visibly upset as his betting team loses on a televised game. He breaks a glass in frustration, confirming her suspicion that he has a gambling problem. When the heroine returns to the flower shop, she finds police there because the store's alarm was triggered. Someone broke in through the fire exit. Inside, she and the hero find the place in disarray but cannot determine what was stolen. The heroine lies to the police, saying she doesn't suspect anyone. After the police leave, the heroine insists that Tony couldn't be behind this, as she had just seen him at the restaurant. The next morning, the heroine reads the shocking news that the schoolmate who had confessed to Billy's murder was found hanged in jail. She tells the hero, suspecting that it was a murder made to look like a suicide, and further suspects Detective Blasco's involvement. The hero investigates Blasco's background and discovers that Blasco had previously taken money from a drug dealer in another town but was never dismissed from the department. The hero advises the heroine to keep these suspicions to herself until they have concrete evidence. In the next scene, the heroine and her partner clean the flower shop. She notices that the mum plant she brought from the nursery is missing. While wondering where it could have gone, she receives a call from her lawyer, who informs her that Tom has been secretly keeping $8 million in a bank account linked to his subsidiary. The heroine questions what kind of business Tom is running to generate such income, but even the lawyer isn't sure, though he suspects it's illegal. That evening, the heroine watches TV news at home, learning that there will be no further investigation into the schoolmate's suicide. Determined to uncover the truth, she meets the DA the next day and casually mentions the theft of the mum from her flower shop. This jogs the DA's memory about a mum that had been found at Billy's murder scene and later taken from Tom's nursery garden. Though mums are common, the heroine finds it odd that someone would specifically seek them out. She remembers seeing large numbers of mums being transported at the nursery and concludes they are connected to the case. She revisits the nursery, sneaks into the employee cabin, and takes another mum. Back at the flower shop, the heroine examines the soil of the mum plant and discovers a test tube containing a tiny orchid bulb sprouting inside it. Realizing that orchids are being smuggled by hiding their bulbs in mums, she searches online and learns that rare orchids can fetch high prices on the black market. She deduces that Tom's secret business involves smuggling these bulbs and that Billy was killed because he discovered this operation. Just then, the sound of someone breaking into the shop through the back door alarms her. Turning off the lights, the heroine hides as her call for help goes unanswered due to a cut line. Soon, Tom and the nursery manager arrive, looking for her. Tom accuses her of meddling in his business and warns her to stay out of it. The manager demands to know where the mum she took is. When the heroine tries to escape, the manager catches her, pushes her to the ground, and points a gun at her. Tom stops the manager, saying they don't need another mess. The heroine realizes that the manager killed Billy under Tom's orders because Billy had uncovered the smuggling operation. Tom even admits to being involved in sports betting and earning illegal money. When the manager fetches a rope to tie her up, the heroine attacks Tom and escapes. Meanwhile, the hero arrives after seeing her voicemail and stops the manager by knocking him down. In the climax, the police arrest Tom and the manager. While the culprits are caught, the heroine laments that an innocent schoolmate was framed and killed. The DA later visits the flower shop and explains that the hero had shown him the photo of the commissioner bribing Blasco, leading to further investigations. The commissioner had orchestrated various schemes to protect Tony and silence the heroine, including shutting down her flower shop. The DA assures her that she can now reopen the shop. Grateful, the heroine thanks the hero for his support. The two decide to go on a date, marking the end of the story.